The dust on Kepler's Folly tasted like broken promises and dead dreams, and I'd been breathing it for 3 days straight. My name's Cora Vex, and I hunt things that don't want to be found. Usually people, sometimes worse. The bounty on my current mark was enough to keep me in fuel and ammunition for a year, assuming I lived long enough to collect it. The fugitive I was tracking went by the name Marcus Cole, though that was likely as fake as everything else about him. What made Cole special wasn't his rap sheet. Murder, theft, fraud, the usual catalog of human failings. What made him worth 50,000 credits was what he could do with his face. Hell, with his whole body. Cole was a shifter, one of those rare genetic anomalies that could reshape their cellular structure like clay in God's hands. Made him damn near impossible to catch, and even harder to kill. I'd been chasing him across 3 systems, always one step behind, following a trail of discarded identities and confused witnesses. The last solid lead had brought me here, to this forgotten moon, orbiting a gas giant so far from the trade routes that most star charts didn't bother marking it. Kepler's Folly, named after some long-dead explorer who'd thought he'd found paradise and ended up finding his grave instead. The settlement sprawled before me like a cancer on the moon's gray skin, all corrugated metal and desperation. Maybe 200 souls called this place home, though I used the word loosely. These were the kind of people who came to the edge of nowhere because nowhere else would have them. Perfect place for a shapeshifter to disappear. I guided my hoverbike through the settlement's main drag, such as it was. The locals watched me with the kind of suspicious interest reserved for strangers carrying visible weapons. My plasma rifle rode easy across my back, and the twin pistols at my hips weren't exactly subtle. In my experience, subtlety was overrated when you were hunting something that could wear your face better than you could. The cantina sat at the settlement's heart like a diseased organ, pumping cheap liquor and cheaper conversation through this community's veins. I pushed through the door, and the conversations died like flowers in hard frost. 20 pairs of eyes tracked my movement as I approached the bar, where a woman with cybernetic arms was polishing glasses that looked like they hadn't been truly cleaned since the moon's formation. "Looking for someone," I said, sliding a hollow pick across the scarred wooden surface. The image showed Cole as he'd appeared on Titan Station 3 weeks ago. Average height, brown hair, the kind of forgettable face that was probably his favorite. "Goes by Marcus Cole, though he might be wearing a different name by now. Different face, too." The bartender glanced at the picture, then at me. Her cybernetic fingers clicked against the glass in her hands, a nervous rhythm that told me she knew something. "Bounty hunter," she said. It wasn't a question. "That's right. And you are?" "Vera Santos. I run this place." She set down the glass and leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Your man was here, all right. 3 days ago. Paid for a room upstairs, kept to himself mostly, but there was something off about him." "Off how?" "Hard to say. Just wrong, you know? Like he was wearing a suit that didn't quite fit." She paused, glancing around the cantina. "He left yesterday morning, headed north toward the old mining complex." I slid a credit chip across the bar. "Much obliged." "Wait." Her cybernetic hand caught my wrist with surprising gentleness. "Be careful out there. The mines. They've been abandoned for 20 years, but folks still hear things. Voices in the dark. Machines that shouldn't be running. I've heard stranger things, I said, though something in her tone made my spine itch. What kind of mining operation was it? Quantum extraction. They were pulling exotic matter from the moon's core, stuff that bent reality in interesting ways. Company pulled out after the accident started. She released my wrist. Just watch yourself, Cora Vex. I stopped halfway to the door. I never told you my name. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Word travels fast on a small moon. The ride north took me through terrain that looked like God's rough draft. Jagged rocks and dust plains broken by the occasional twisted tree that had somehow learned to survive on nothing but stubbornness and spite. The mining complex rose from the landscape like a metal mountain, all towers and processing facilities connected by a web of pipes and walkways. Even abandoned, it dominated the horizon with industrial arrogance. I left my bike at the complex's entrance and proceeded on foot, plasma rifle in hand. The main gate hung open, its security systems long dead. Inside, the facility stretched out like a metallic maze, all shadows and echoes. My boots rang against the metal walkways, the sound swallowed by the vast emptiness around me. The first sign that something was wrong came from the dust patterns on the floor. Too many footprints, going in too many directions. Either Cole had been very busy, or I wasn't alone in this place. I followed the freshest tracks deeper into the complex, past dormant machinery that looked like sleeping giants. The quantum extraction equipment was unlike anything I'd seen before. Massive crystalline structures surrounded by containment fields that still hummed with residual energy. The air itself felt thick here, charged with possibilities that made my teeth ache. You're persistent, I'll give you that. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, echoing off the metal walls. I spun, rifle raised, but the corridor was empty. Marcus Cole, I presume, I called out, though I'm betting that's not your real name either. Laughter drifted through the air like smoke. Names are just masks we wear, bounty hunter. You, of all people, should understand that. Show yourself. Which self would you prefer? A figure stepped out of the shadows ahead of me. Tall, lean, wearing my face like a stolen coat. The resemblance was perfect, down to the scar on my left cheek and the way I held my rifle. It was like looking into a funhouse mirror that reflected possibilities instead of light. Impressive, I said, keeping my weapon trained on my doppelganger. But you missed something. Did I? The thing wearing my face tilted its head with my own mannerisms. I studied you for days, Cora. Every gesture, every expression. I know you better than you know yourself. Maybe. But you don't know about the tracker I swallowed before I came here. I smiled, and saw my own smile reflected back at me. Transmits my exact location every 60 seconds. If my heart stops, backup arrives in 6 hours. The false Cora's expression flickered, just for a moment. Bluffing. Try me. For a heartbeat, we stood frozen in a tableau of mutual destruction. Then the shapeshifter's form began to shift, features flowing like water, until Marcus Cole stood before me again. At least, the version of him I'd been chasing. You're good, he said. But you're also alone on a moon that doesn't officially exist, hunting a man who can be anyone. The odds aren't exactly in your favor. I've beaten worse odds. Have you? He gestured to the quantum extraction equipment around us. Do you know what this place really is, bounty hunter? What they were mining here? Exotic matter, So what? Not just any exotic matter. They were extracting quantum foam, the stuff that exists in the spaces between reality. Raw possibility, you might say. His smile was cold as vacuum. The company pulled out because the miners started changing. Not physically at first. Mentally. They began to see things that weren't there, remember things that never happened. The boundary between what was real and what was possible started to blur. I kept my rifle trained on him, but something in his words made my blood run cold. What's your point? My point is that reality is negotiable here, and I've been negotiating for 3 days. The world around me shimmered, like heat waves rising from sun-baked stone. For a moment, I saw the facility as it had been 20 years ago, alive with activity, miners and technicians going about their work, the quantum extraction equipment humming with purpose. Then the vision faded, leaving me standing in the abandoned ruins once more. Impressive trick, I said, though my voice sounded less steady than I'd intended. Not a trick, a preview. Cole's form began to shift again. But this time, he didn't become someone else. He became everyone else. His features flowed through a dozen faces, men, women, young, old, human, and some things that weren't quite human at all. You see, the quantum foam doesn't just allow shape-shifting. It allows reality shifting, and I've been drinking deeply from that well. The facility around us began to change. Walls flowing like liquid, machinery rearranging itself into impossible configurations. I stumbled backward, my rational mind struggling to process what I was seeing. This isn't real, I said. Define real. Cole's voice came from a mouth that kept changing shape. Is real what you can touch, what you can see, or is it what you believe? I fired my plasma rifle, the bolt searing through the air toward Cole's shifting form. It passed through him like he was made of smoke, scorching the wall behind where he'd been standing, or where I thought he'd been standing. The quantum foam was playing havoc with my perceptions, making it impossible to trust my senses. You can't kill what isn't entirely there, Cole said, his voice now coming from multiple directions at once. But I can certainly kill you. The floor beneath my feet turned to liquid metal, and I found myself sinking into it like quicksand. I fought against the impossible substance, but it held me fast, rising toward my chest with inexorable patience. The beauty of quantum foam, Cole continued, is that it responds to will as much as physics. And my will has been shaped by 20 years of running, 20 years of being hunted, 20 years of rage. I was up to my neck in liquid metal now, the stuff cold and heavy against my skin. But as I struggled, something occurred to me. Something Vera had said back at the cantina. "You're not Marcus Cole," I gasped. The shapeshifter's laughter echoed through the impossible space around us. Of course I'm not. Marcus Cole died 3 days ago, along with everyone else who came looking for him. You're one of the miners, one of the ones who changed. The liquid metal stopped rising, and Cole's multiple faces turned toward me with interest. Very good, bounty hunter. I was Thomas Kellerman, quantum extraction specialist. Class 3. I was here when the first reality storms hit, when the foam started leaking into our world. I watched my colleagues change, watched them become something more than human. And when the company abandoned us, left us to die in this place, I decided to become something more as well. The real Cole. Fed him to the quantum foam 3 days ago. His memories, his appearance, his identity, all absorbed into the collective unconscious of this place, along with the others who came hunting him. A marshal from the outer colonies, a corporate security team, even another bounty hunter, though he wasn't nearly as resourceful as you. The liquid metal began to rise again, but I was ready for it this time. Instead of fighting against it, I let my mind relax, let my consciousness drift into the quantum foam that permeated this place. If reality was negotiable here, then I could negotiate too. The metal stopped rising and began to recede. I pulled myself free, standing on solid ground once more. Around me, the facility flickered between its abandoned state and its active past, but I could see both versions now, could feel the quantum foam responding to my will. Interesting, Cole Kellerman said. You're adapting faster than most. I've always been a quick learner. I raised my rifle again, but this time, I wasn't aiming at his physical form. I was aiming at the quantum field that surrounded him, the exotic matter that gave him his power. Tell me something, Kellerman. If you can reshape reality, why stay here? Why not leave, explore the galaxy with your new abilities? His multiple faces showed confusion for the first time. Leave? This is my home, my prison, my kingdom. No, I said, understanding flooding through me. It's your cage. You're not controlling the quantum foam. It's controlling you. You've been here so long, absorbed so much exotic matter that you can't exist anywhere else. You're part of this place now, as much as the walls and the machinery. The facility around us shuddered, reality rippling like a pond disturbed by a thrown stone. Cole, Josh Kellerman's form, became less stable, his features flowing more rapidly between identities. You don't understand, he said, his voice now a chorus of the dead. I am evolution. I am possibility made manifest. I am trapped, I finished, and dying. The quantum foam is breaking you down bit by bit. That's why you need fresh minds, fresh identities to absorb. You're not a predator. You're a parasite. I pulled the trigger, but instead of firing a plasma bolt, I channeled my will through the weapon, using it as a focus for my intention. The beam that emerged wasn't energy. It was pure negation, a denial of the quantum foam's influence over this space. The effect was immediate and devastating. Cole Kellerman screamed, his form collapsing in on itself as the exotic matter that sustained him was stripped away. The facility around us began to stabilize, the impossible geometries resolving into simple, abandoned industrial architecture. Please, he whispered, now appearing as Thomas Kellerman, a man in his 50s with kind eyes and calloused hands. Don't leave me here alone. I've been alone for so long. I lowered my rifle, feeling something like pity for the thing he'd become. You were never alone, Kellerman. You had all those voices in your head, all those stolen identities. But that's not living. That's just echoing. He nodded, tears streaming down his weathered face. I remember now. I remember who I was before the foam changed me. I had a daughter on Titan Station, Sarah. She'd be grown now, probably has children of her own. Tell me about her, I said, kneeling beside him as his form began to fade. She loved old earth music, jazz, blues, things with soul. Used to sing while she worked on her homework. His voice was growing fainter, but there was peace in it now. I should have gone home to her instead of staying here. Should have chosen love over fear. It's not too late, I said, though we both knew it was. He smiled, and for a moment he looked like the man he'd been before the quantum foam had claimed him. Thank you, Cora Vex, for reminding me who I was. Then he was gone, dissolved into motes of light that danced briefly in the air before fading away. The facility around me groaned and settled, finally at peace after 20 years of impossible dreams. I made my way back through the complex, past the now silent quantum extraction equipment, and out into the gray light of Kepler's Folly's eternal twilight. My hoverbike waited where I'd left it, solid and real and reassuringly mundane. The ride back to the settlement gave me time to think about what I'd tell the authorities. Marcus Cole was dead. That much was true, even if the circumstances were more complicated than they'd ever believe. The bounty would be paid, and I'd move on to the next job, the next hunt. But as I guided my bike through the settlement's main drag, I noticed something different. The locals still watched me with suspicious eyes, but there was something else there now. Recognition, maybe even respect. Word traveled fast on a small moon, Vera had said. Apparently, it traveled even faster than I'd thought. I parked outside the cantina and pushed through the door. Vera looked up from behind the bar, her cybernetic fingers clicking against a glass in a rhythm that seemed almost musical now. "Bounty hunter," she said, but there was warmth in her voice that hadn't been there before. "Vera." I slid onto a bar stool and set my rifle against the bar. "Whiskey, the good stuff." She poured 2 glasses and slid one across to me. "To Thomas Kellerman," she said, raising her glass. I stared at her, my hand frozen halfway to my drink. "How did you know about Tommy?" She smiled, and this time it did reach her eyes. "He was my husband, bounty hunter. Before the quantum foam took him, before he became something else. I've been waiting 20 years for someone to set him free." The whiskey burned going down, but it was a clean burn, honest and real. "Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me? Would it have changed what you had to do?" I considered that, staring into the amber depths of my glass. "No, probably not." "Then there was no point in telling you, but there is a point in thanking you." She reached across the bar and touched my hand with her flesh and blood fingers. "He's at peace now. They all are." I finished my whiskey and stood, shouldering my rifle. I should go. Got a long ride back to the spaceport. "Cora." I turned back to find her holding out a data chip. Tommy's personal logs, from before the change. I thought maybe you could make sure they reach his daughter on Titan Station. Let her know what kind of man her father really was. I took the chip and slipped it into my jacket pocket. "Sarah, right? She likes jazz and blues." Vera's eyes widened in surprise, then filled with tears. "You talked to him, at the end." "We talked. He remembered who he was." I left her there in the cantina, surrounded by the ghosts of better times and the promise of stories worth telling. Outside, Kepler's Folly stretched under its alien sky, still forgotten, still desperate, but somehow cleaner than it had been. The dust still tasted like broken promises, but underneath that, I could taste something else now. Hope, maybe. Or just the absence of despair. I fired up my hoverbike and headed for the spaceport. Thomas Kellerman's memories riding safe in my pocket. I had a delivery to make on Titan Station, and after that, there would be other hunts, other bounties, other stories waiting to be told. But for now, I was content to ride through the gray landscape of Kepler's Folly, carrying the last gift of a man who'd found his way home at last.